Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the RGV Week 5 RGVSports.com podcast. My name is Dennis Silva. I'm the
It's not a
32-5.
podcast, dude.
It's the Google Hangout. Sorry, Google
There
Hangout.
we
It's
go.
about 1 a.m. and we're trying to knock this down.
Well, I think
Talking
Dennis
about
is
Week 5.
confused because you've been on quite the media tour today.
Thank you, Mario, for recognizing my tour around the valley this week from Harlingen to here. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
My name is Dennis Silva. I'm the 32-5A beat writer. I'm here with Greg. Greg, you want to say hi to the people?
Hey, hi, people.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
Mario. And Mario, the 31-5A beat writer.
Hello.
And there you go. Guys,
Oh, so he's gone. I don't know what this is. Well, what Dennis was about to say is that we're going to recap some of the games from last week, talk a little bit about our top 10, and look ahead to the next week in Valley football and see where all the district stuff is going from here. So, Mario, you covered the game of the week this week, so you can get us started with that. And it looks like Dennis is back, so he can take over from here. But Mario, talk about game of the week.
Thanks for being back, Dennis.
Thanks. Bear with me here.
So, as far as game of the week, Sherry Lynn played. Sherry Lynn played Edinburgh Villa, two of the top 10 teams in the Valley. People expected a shootout. Score was a lot closer than I think most people would have anticipated. Probably the best defensive effort by Villa. I don't think they've really been known for that. They've allowed quite a few teams to put up points, but against Sherry Lynn, they held them, I guess you could say, to 27 points, which it might be a season low for Sherry Lynn High, if I'm not mistaken. Good game by both teams. Eber Lopez was not had his lowest throwing game of the season. The completion-wise, yards wasn't really on point offensively. Sherry Lynn High just came up with more points in the second half. That's really what pushed them over the top. They had a big run for 88 yards, a big pass for 88 yards that really pushed Sherry Lynn over the top, and ultimately a field goal ended up being the difference. So that's Sherry Lynn at 4-1 now and 1-0 in district.
Mario, as far as Vela, was it close or was it competitive, or was this a game that Sherlin kind of you felt the whole time was never really in doubt?
I think this is a game that Villa had a shot at getting. They didn't score in the second and third quarter. And when you think about that, I mean, just anything, even a field goal would have forced this into overtime, which is part of the reason why I think they would have the upper hand next week when they play Roma. With Roma's the best defensive team in terms of yards allowed in the Valley, and going up against Villa, I just think that they'll be able to probably have a few breaks against a tough defense like that.
Do you feel now like Sherry Lynn is clearly the best team in that district, or do you still think about Mission Veterans, or do you think Vela, just had a bad day, or how do you think in terms of the overall district?
Well, I think Mission Vets, just by virtue of not playing, they kind of fall behind. I think they kind of been off people's radars, I guess, for the last week or so. So I think just by that, they're probably the forgotten team, but I mean, that's a team that a lot of people had ranked as number 2 possibly in district, and I think if they're able to come out with a big win this week, I mean, it'll really shake up things in 31-5A because that's a district in which a lot of people have Sherry Lynn picked number 1.
All right, and Greg, you had some decent games, some scares maybe here and there. What was the team that maybe you took away the most from in Week 5, and who impressed you probably the most?
Well, I mean, one team that jumps out to me right away is PSJA North. To beat the Westlaco team that I thought would win this district, and granted they have not had the best start to the season, but still for PSJA North to go from 0-10 last year to now 1-0 in district and beat, traditionally one of the top teams in Westlaco High, I think that says a lot about them, and it was mostly a defensive effort. It was a 14-7 game, and Westlaco's offense continued to not be able to get it going. So that was the biggest takeaway overall. In that same district, Edinburgh North beat Westlaco East 36-35 in double overtime, ended Westlaco East's unbeaten start to the season. So that was impressive. Big day for Matt Whitesides, big day for Martin Rodriguez, big day for Michael Cantu. Edinburgh North just moved the ball on offense and did a lot of good things there, and Westlaco East, they had their running game going with Lupe Marone, but wasn't enough to keep the undefeated season alive. So that's the big takeaways from 31-6A for me.
Greg McAdam Memorial
What Dennis was about to say, I'm guessing.
Are they still number one? Well, I think that's the question.
Week facing La Jolla, you would think that the number one team in our rankings would be able to blow out La Jolla, but only 21-17 there. Oh, he's back. So what I'm saying,
we get your question, Dennis. We get
you got where I was going. You got where I was going with the 4 points against La Jolla. Anything to be concerned about at this point? I mean, at Memorial, I know we have them as the number one team. Shouldn't they be blowing these types of games and just dominating them from start to finish and getting the third stringers in there?
Right. Well, I don't know. In this game specifically, talking to Coach Bill Littleton, he said it was a matter of a couple penalties that held back a couple of drives. They did a good job running the ball. They didn't pass it very well. They had one turnover kind of late in a drive that cost them some points. So if they kind of avoided those mistakes, maybe it could have been a little more lopsided. But La Jolla did a good job of kind of holding onto the ball, and given that Memorial runs the ball a lot, they did a good job of kind of milking the clock. So I doubt there were a ton of possessions in this game overall, so I think probably it ended up being lower scoring and probably closer as a result of that as much as anything else. But La Jolla does deserve a lot of credit for what they've done on defense, not just this week, but last week when they hung with Weslaco East as well. So certainly, yeah, a little bit of concern there just because you would think it wouldn't be that close, but overall probably not too much for this early stage.
Well, I guess the biggest question in this case is, does Memorial stay at number one, or do they drop considering they didn't blow out La Jolla?
I'm going to have Sherryland number one again because I had Sherryland number one last week. I know you guys are the same way. The thing is, it's hard to dock them for winning a close game when a lot of teams can't even get that done. I don't want to knock them down too far for a win, given that again, one of the better one-loss teams that we have in the Valley. So still like Memorial a lot. They're going to be my number two, but again, that's not exactly what you want to see out of them this week.
Agreed. Sherlin number one. I know.
Right.
I'm back.
You're going to have to steer the ship at this point because Dennis doesn't want to be with us.
Well, no, but I dropped out too this time. I can't even see you. Here we go. We're both back now.
Okay.
Great technology we have here at RGVSports.com that allows us to successfully run a live Google Hangout.
Yeah.
This is the freshman team version of this. I was gonna say Shirley and we both had him number one. I think most of us maybe had Memorial number two. Mario, I don't know. Was that right for you?
Yeah, for this week, yeah. I mean, I even kind of considered him dropping him at 3, although I think that's a harsh drop off from 1 to 3. But just because I expected them to blow out La Jolla. So I think 2 is fair. I mean, both teams came away with the win, but I think Sherryland's win, you could justify them barely getting by Vela as opposed to the McAllen Memorial barely getting by La Jolla.
Who would you have had number 2 if you had dropped Memorial to 3? Who would have been your number 2?
That's tough. I mean, I'm trying to remember Mac High.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Mac High's there, but I mean, that might be a little bit generous, I think. And I think at that point you're getting into, do you want to quote unquote punish Memorial or really be generous toward McAllen for last week? So I think Sherryland 1, McAllen Memorial 2 is appropriate. I think not too many people could complain about that.
Right. The thing is, like, when you're going to move somebody down, you got to move some people up. If I look at mine, and then McAllen High has the 2 losses already this season, not to Valley teams, but 2 losses. Then you have Edinburgh Vela as my number 4 who lost, and Weslaco East is my number 5 who lost. So this is why it's hard for me to move McAllen Memorial any lower than 2, even if they don't look awesome in a win.
Well, if I'm Edinburgh Vela, I mean, this is what Coach Salinas said after the game. If you want to make a case for Vela, you could say this is a second-year program going into its 3rd year, coming within 3 points of forcing overtime against the Valley's best team in Sherryland. So I think just by that, you could say that they should stay where they are. Maybe you could even inch them closer. Just because it's their first loss of the season. And in the way they lost, just 3 points.
Yeah, that's why I definitely didn't want to knock them down. I think it's the same theory that I had earlier in the year, leaving in some of these teams who lost to really tough out-of-Valley competition. It's just the idea of, it just comes down to who you play. Anybody could schedule 4, like 3A teams or something and come away 4-0, but, once you start playing the toughest competition, and then we get into district, and you draw the top of the district instead of some of the weaker teams, then yeah, in the rankings, it's going to reflect, regardless of your record, just kind of how well you're playing and where you're at as a team.
And here's the thing too with Sherryland, no one on Sherryland's going to say this, but their schedule gets easier as the year goes by. I mean, they knock off Vela, they're going to play Mission. From here, they go to Roma, Sherryland Pioneer, and Valley View. That's winless. So at this point, I mean, they already faced their toughest competition. At this point, they just need to stay healthy for the playoffs. I mean, I don't really see them losing the rest of the way. I mean, Mission Vets is their next biggest challenge. After that, it drops off.
Agreed. Before I get knocked out again by my great iPad, I'm going to go into 32-5A and talk about PSG Southwest, which had a big win.
Is this because of Neo iOS, Dennis?
Actually, no, I haven't even updated, which that would have been worse apparently because that's not great. But big win for Southwest getting its first district win and doing it at Bain Laprade Stadium in Donna. Great win for them. Eckhout over PSG isn't that much of a surprise. Maybe an eye-opener for some with Eckhout's struggles. But I thought they did really well as far as defensively, and the offense executing late has been impressive. So that's what stood out for me. Guys, what teams kind of maybe disappointed you last week as far as just anybody in particular? Just Vela, for example, do we move them down for the loss? Or is it, Sherryland, who we had number 1, can they stay? Or this?
Okay, well, I think we're going to repeat to him what we had said when he got cut off.
Well, he's cut off again, so he's still not going to hear it.
So I guess on your end, Greg, are there any teams that disappointed you this past the week?
Well, one that jumps out to me a little bit is McAllen Row. And then, again, it's weird because they won, but 28-21 against the La Jolla Juarez Lincoln team, who had really, really, really struggled a lot this season. That they were even close with that team does not, seem very favorable to me. I would think that they would be able to blow them out in that game. Defensively, I think they would be able to control everything, and then offensively, I would think they would be able to score at will against that team if they're as strong as they need to be to compete with the McAllen High and McAllen Memorials of the district. So I really thought they were firmly outside of the top 2, and I'm even more sure of that now. So that's where we stand with that district and with McAllen Row in particular.
What about you, Mario? And basically, I just wanted to. What I was saying is the top half of this top 10 has got to be really jungled up now because we mentioned guys moving down, but everyone's suffering losses. Do we keep them there because we know how good they are, or do they deserve to be dropped down because they did suffer a defeat and everyone who didn't get moved up? This has got to be one of the tougher top 10s I can remember in memory. I'm just curious how you guys might approach it.
Well, I guess in Vela's case, this might be one of the few times where you could actually consider moving up a team based off of quote-unquote moral victory. Yeah. I mean, Coach Salinas said that he doesn't believe in moral victories. I think most coaches would say that, but he kind of went against that when he said that he made a case for his team being a second-year program, going into third year, and losing to a Sherryland team that's the best in the Valley. So he kind of contradicted what he said a little bit. I mean, he was making a case for a moral victory in that sense. And losing to 3 points, I don't see any way that Vela should drop. If anything, they should stay tied for number 5, maybe hold on to number 5. Or in a week like this, he probably could make a case for bumping him up one spot.
Especially even to do that on the road. I don't know how much of a difference, how much we ever factor that in or how much of a difference that actually makes. But
well, let me tell you in this case, sorry, Greg. In this case, I don't think it was a road game. I saw more Vela fans than Sherryland fans.
Really?
Like their section was filled. And then they had 2 side bleachers that had people. Sherryland didn't have the side bleachers from what I could see, but they didn't fill their thing to capacity. Or if they did, it was after kickoff. Vela's side was filled at kickoff, plus the 2 smallest sections were had people. So.
But did Pioneer steal half the fans? I don't understand.
I did see a Pioneer fan, a kid wearing a Pioneer shirt at the game.
Interesting.
And the thing that I want to know too is where Mission Veterans coach David Gilpin sat, because I know he told me he was going to go to the game. So I don't know if he just sat behind the goalpost or where he sat, because I'd be curious in that game where he would sit.
Interesting. Yeah. Dennis, you got anything for us? You're back.
Before you cut off.
I am, man. Great. I didn't know if you had anything as far as your approach to the top 10 and how you might go about things. How do you approach something like this where top teams are losing, and then do you bring up the bottom half of teams that we know that aren't as talented up? How are you going about it?
Yeah, like I said, it's about who you play, and it usually determines whether you win or whether you lose. So I look at the strength of the competition and how well your team actually performed more than whether you got the win or loss at the end of the day. And I think even for me, this extends all the way down to a team like Port Isabel, who a lot of people are going to have ranked very high, and I have them kind of on the fringe of my top 10 because yes, they're undefeated. And they beat Brownsville St. Joseph, who was also undefeated, but that was a really close game most of the way through. I know Port Isabel pulled away at the end and won by 23, but they scored a bunch of times late to get that done. And it was a one-score game for most of the afternoon or most of the evening, if I remember that correctly. So, again, that hurts them in my eyes because if you're one of these top 10 teams, like I think if McAllen Memorial played Brownsville St. Joseph, I don't think it would be a one-score game very long. So,
oh, go ahead, Greg.
So, no, I just would say that in that sense, that's where I come from in terms of ranking teams like that lower than teams like whether it's Vela or whether it's Westaco East or whoever it might be who loses. Because I think that those losses are a greater accomplishment in a lot of ways than that win.
Well, here's the thing, too, with PI's schedule, they're not playing another top 10 team in the Valley. Right. I mean, they haven't all year long.
Rio Hondo? Well, I know Rio Hondo's not top 10, but I know Rio Hondo could sneak in there.
Had some good results.
Consideration. They'll get votes, but I mean, PI doesn't play a top 10 team all year.
Right.
And every other team in the top 10 plays a top 10 team.
For me, it's just if PI is still undefeated and we're in week 9, week 10, week 11, then they start to, I'm sure at that point they'll start to slide up as some of these teams end up with 2, 3, maybe even 4 losses. Then you have to start considering moving Port Isabel ahead of them. But for now, I think it's just, to beat 4 teams that are of a lower quality isn't enough for me to say, oh, these guys have to be in our top 10 or high in our top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, is there anything else you want to add or you're looking forward to? We're going to have the podcast on Tuesday. Anything else you want to add about last week? Any thoughts in particular? Any notes?
We should just get out of here while all 3 of us are still here.
I agree. I'm on board with that. Mario, are you okay with that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you have the floor. I mean, as long as you're here, I think you should talk as long as the connection's on.
Right. So quick, sign us off, and we'll just get out of here.
Well, we're going to do that. We're going to
sign off. Podcast.
Yes, we're going to sign off. Podcast will be coming Tuesday. Check out RGVSports.com. I'm Dennis Silva II. For Greg, Luca, and Mario Aguirre, we apologize, but hope you enjoyed this. Good night, everyone.